Now, with our user login working, it's time to take advantage of it and protect certain routes on our backend. Specifically, it would make sense to only allow logged in users to create new messages. Basically, all routes in my messages.js file in the routes folder, except for the first route, the get all messages route, should be protected. I don't want to have unauthenticated users create new messages, edit messages, or delete messages. So since the routes in this file are ordered like this, it would be great if we could add some kind of check here to make sure you only reach these routes if you are authenticated. If not, we don't even have to continue anywhere. You are not authenticated, go home, you're, well, getting some kind of error. Turns out we can do this, thankfully. We can use the express router and then the use method. So not get, not post, use. This means on each request, this method here is reached. Since this is reached on each request, I will use the path of / to really, well, handle every request reaching this route here. And then I can execute the normal callback, which will now be called or executed really for every request besides this first get request, which of course is handled before reaching this use function here. So in here, the goal is to check if the user, the client, the browser, is issuing a valid token. So if it sends us a valid token. How do we find out if a token is valid? Well, we're creating this token on the server, so we know the logic behind the token. And especially, if you remember this, we used to store a secret here when creating a token. We can now use this secret to validate an incoming token. So here we need to use this JWT package. So let's import it here, require JSON web token. And on this package here, I can simply check JWT verify, execute this method, which allows me to check an incoming token to check if it is valid. So here I need to use the token the user sends me, and I will get this token not in the parameters of my request, so not encoded in the URL here like this. This is not how I pass the token. Instead, it will be added to the query parameters of the request. If you are not sure what this is, query parameters are simply the parameters appended at the end of a URL separated by the question mark. And then you could have token some string. Then token here would be the key, and this would be the value of this query parameter. So this is exactly how I will pass it. So I can access it on request, query, which gives me access to all query parameters passed with the request, and then token. So if no query parameter is passed, this will automatically be null, in which case this verification will also fail. So we don't have an issue with that case. The next argument is our secret. Now here, secret, of course, has to match the secret you use here when you create the token. With this, we're able to validate it. Next, we can pass the callback of our call. We could also pass some options, but I don't want to do this. So here I will immediately pass the callback and see if this was successful. We will either have an error or our decoded token here. Now, if we do have an error, I know the token is not valid. It may have expired or it was never correct in the first place. Whatever the case, I want to return a response where the status code is 401 for not authorized, and where I then give some error message. So let's say a title of not authenticated, and then my error object attached to it. If we do not go inside this if block, so if we don't have an error, if the token is valid, well, then I want to execute this next callback we're passing to our function up here to let the request continue its journey. I don't want to send a response in this case because, well, this is not the task of this route here. I simply wanted to have a check. And now the request may travel on to whichever URL or whichever route it wanted to reach in the first place here. With that, We're making sure that no unauthenticated user can reach our routes down here. And we can actually see this in action already by restarting our node server and then going back to the application. I'm not signed in, so let's now try to create a new message. You will see that we indeed get the not authenticated error here in the console. But if I do sign in like this, and I now try this, I still get the error. Why is that? Well, it makes sense because yes, we set up our backend to use this token, but what we didn't do is we're not passing the token with our front-end requests. In our service here, in the message service where we reach out to our backend, we're not passing the token with each request. Now I will do so in a second, but before doing so, I want to work on the backend a little bit more and make sure that now that we have users which are authenticated, that we now map these users to our messages and the other way around.